Hi everyone, it's still Friday night and I'm about to start the video 2, the so-called video 2. In video 1 about the innovation memo or the innovation project, I concentrated on the content of it and emphasized how important it was to formulate your innovation in role-playing terms where you are the middle-level employee or middle-level manager making a suggestion to your immediate supervisor. And we talked about that some, and I emphasized how important it is to have a date, to have a time frame, and to make sure it is your project is specific as to place, and use that throughout, and to basically avoid the temptation of writing a general, traditional college term paper like document, because that's not what this is. This is a professional format, and as I was saying, it's one you're going to use, time and time again, with granted some modification depending on the innovation, depending on your company or organization, depending on where you are in the organization. But in terms of the basics, it's not going to change very much, this sort of essential structure. And that's what I want to work with you on now. Now you'll see this is, at this point, this is where it gets a lot easier. And that is this innovation memo or innovation project basically breaks down into 4, roughly. It's a little bit of flexibility here, but it's basically 4 different parts, and sometimes the parts stretch depending on your needs, and once again, depending on your supervisor and all that stuff. But basically, it's 4 parts. Now, let me walk you through this. First of all, you want to make sure to use a memo format, okay? In the sense, you begin with to, from, what, that is to say, the name of the organization, the name of your position. You're going to have to improvise with that and make it up. Whatever you choose is fine with me. I'm not fussy about how you formulate these terms. That's completely up to you. And once again, excuse me, there should be a date on it as well. Okay. Now, then you can begin with dear so-and-so if you want, or you can drop that as it so-and-so is your supervisor or not. And let me reiterate what I was saying in video 1. And that is, you're going to have to do some thinking about the tone that's part of this project. Whether you want to be relatively formal and a little bit distant, or personable. And it can go either way. I mean, it doesn't really, there's no rules here. And I know, there's a certain sort of tendency when you read textbooks about this sort of thing for the books to emphasize the formality and give you examples that are very formal. But those times have passed, quite frankly. And all that standardization in the formatting and the rules about tone and formality, I don't want to, it would be disingenuous to say that they're completely gone. But things have really changed, and as our course progresses, I'm going to talk to you a lot about that. That's going to be one of the main themes. But in terms, for this memo, in terms of how cordial you are, and how relaxed and how personal you are with your supervisor, that's basically your call, and I'm happy with whatever you choose. Okay, and so we're working on 4 parts. You want to begin with an introduction, and you want to understand why it's not for the same reason that a college term paper or a college essay would have an introduction. It's for another reason, and that is, in professional writing, it's very important to remember that it's not necessarily the supervisor or the person to whom you're addressing the letter who is going to read it and make decisions. about it. It could very well be an administrative assistant. It could be, a million different possibilities. And so it's very important to situate and to contextualize and make absolutely clear why you are writing this. Otherwise you run into problems. And let me sort of be a little bit nasty here, and that is when employees make suggestions, there's different ways of handling them, but there's a very high bar in terms of they have to be good. Otherwise, the internal mechanisms of the organization will do the suggestion. So when basically someone who is just, like a free-running employee makes a suggestion, it has to capture the attention, number one, and number two, the reason for that employee making a certain suggestion, and especially when it's an innovation, a technical or administrative innovation, has to be very clear and from the first paragraph. Now, that said, the introduction should be short. In general, 4 sentences is enough. 2 sentences is okay. Even 1 sentence, if you write in a really compressed way, is okay as well. Okay, once again, understand the purpose. You have to explain that this is an innovation. What it is, why you're presenting it, so it can be filtered. So your supervisor, it could very well be that your supervisor finds it interesting, but doesn't have the authority to make any kind of decision about it. Okay, that's one possibility. Another possibility is more interesting, and that is your supervisor likes it a lot and wants to push it up a couple of levels, if not, really, really high. Like one of her supervisors, 3 and 4 and 5 stages above, and she might push, so to speak, her employee and say, my assistant director who just joined the company 2 years ago had this great idea. I want you to look at it. So this is one of the differences between professional communication now and earlier. Earlier, this would have tended not to happen. Now, just because email is, everything is a click away, it happens all the time. And once again, I'll be talking to you about this because it's important. Okay, so you've got the first part. Number 1 is the introduction, which basically contextualizes and situates and justifies that you're writing. Okay, short. Okay, point number 2 is the innovation itself. Now, this is where you have to be very careful and to, kind of cut to the chase here. It has to be completely focused on the place, on the time, that you are interested in. Okay, and no background. And here, let me sort of once again be a little nasty here. If in this kind of proposal, if you did this company was founded in whenever 1932. Basically, your supervisor doesn't care about that. And the other thing to keep in mind about general organizational background, the supervisors are always going to know much more than the employees. And in a document like this, they don't want to hear that stuff. Once again, it's not a college theoretical research paper, and they don't care about background. It's just wince when they hear that. And they read it, they just want to know what the innovation is. Okay, now, the thing is, what makes this easy, it's always the same. This is somewhere between, 3 and 5 paragraphs, basically. And any more is way too much here. Let me sort of sneak this in. And I don't want to use a lot of time, so I always have to look at the clock here. The many organizations have very rigid space allotments for their proposals. I worked for 10 years for a company. They had a specific name for this that I don't want to share right now. But the deal was they told their employers 1 page. And what we did is this is a little bit weird, but a very high executive would read these things. They wanted to read them to get a feel for the pulse of the company. It was also a way of sort of checking up on on his closer employees, the people who were working right under him to kind of get a feel for the people. So he liked reading them. Okay. However, if these things went more than one word, literally one word over one page, he just trashed them and scolded his immediate workers for not communicating how earnest he was about this. Okay, so you want to be very careful, no long-winded, blah, 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 blah. Everyone is too busy. Okay, so part number 2 is the innovation itself in 3 to 5 paragraphs. As you're writing these, keep in mind that if they like the innovation, or if they like a certain point in the innovation, they will ask for more information. They will ask for another report, and you have to trust them to know their business. Okay, so this is just brief, 3 paragraphs, in and out. Okay, and later on, I'm going to talk to you about how to expand this if they begin to ask you for more information, but that's down the road. If this is long, if these reports are long-winded, and vague and whatever, full of ambiguities and stuff like that, they'll just get tossed out. Okay, so that's point number 2, is just what the innovation is, and be very place and time specific, everyone. Just, name, who's going to do this and where it is, and you can fictionalize this. That's absolutely okay with me. This is, it's not, as I say, it's not really a research paper. It's a professional format. Okay, so part number 3 is the benefits. Okay, and this is 3 very precise benefits. Same thing, you can fictionalize this a little bit. You can fictionalize it pretty much as you want, as long as it's reasonable. But same thing, be very, very, very concrete and specific. Some specific examples of how this is going to improve. Now, if you want me to help you with this, or if you want more detail on this, that's great. Just contact me. Okay, so that's part number 3. Part number 4 is really simple. It's just the conclusion. Just summarize. Just keep it really, really simple. Summarize in case they're kind of, reading the first paragraph and the last paragraph, so they see that you didn't change your mind or get lost. And it's very, 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 very tight. Now, there's also something that's formulaic that you want to be sure to add. And I don't quite remember it, but I don't think this is in the books. And this is a little bit of a, professional whatever tip. That is, offer to continue working on the innovation, but make it clear, and this is the important part, make it clear that you understand that you might not be included. Okay, that make it very, very clearly understood that your feelings will not be hurt if you are not involved in the next stage of the implementation. Okay, and that's that's kind of, it would be in this sort of thing, it's to be expected that you don't do the follow-up. Okay, that it's basically handed off to other people, especially in a large organization. The other thing is that I want to communicate to you, that's often a backhanded compliment, because the supervisor doesn't want to release you to the to other people to work on a project that may not be administered by her or him. Another thing, I know there's another thing I need to say about this. You always want to keep in mind that you want to keep the long view in mind. That is, maybe at first they won't ask you for more information, but maybe they will in the future. And in most cases, especially with large organizations, there's no way to know their plans. Okay, I did exactly these project reviews for a long, long, long time, and we never, we thank people for submitting, and we often didn't even tell them. Okay, because we often weren't sure. There was a whole process that went on, and very often, 6 or 8 months down the road, we would come back to them. And sometimes, all kinds of nice things happen, but this stuff takes a while, as I'm saying, especially in a large organization. Okay, I'm hitting 14 minutes. Thank you, everyone. You're doing a great job. The quality of your writing is fantastic. And remember the 2 things: I'm here if you need me, and secondly, do-overs are great. Okay, thanks very much. Have a great weekend, everyone.